what's new in 3.5. So my name is Jennifer Gill, and I am the Director of Global Product Marketing at Zerto. And I have with me Shannon Snowden, who is our Senior Technical Marketing Architect. And we're going to walk you through some slides, and Shannon is going to take you through a demo. Before we move on from the first slide, I do like to point out our awards, and we added a new industry recognition, actually, the Gartner Cool Vendor for 2014. So pretty excited about that. Okay, so we're going to walk you through Zerto Virtual Replication 3.5. So the major enhancement that we have is offsite backup, and we're going to walk you through that, and Shannon's going to do a demo with that as well. And then we're going to go through some additional enhancements around simplified management, alerting, APIs, that kind of thing. Oh, and actually I forgot, we will take questions throughout the webinar. So in that red panel that popped up on the right-hand side of my screen, anyway, it might be different for you, but on the right-hand side, you'll see that there's a questions tab. You can just type in your questions, and we're going to save time at the end for those. But we may take them throughout as well, depending on the flow of the presentation. But we absolutely will get to some questions. Okay, so what is offsite backup? So it's really a new way to do things in terms of data protection. So it's long-term retention built on hypervisor-based replication. You'll see some notes there that it does not replace traditional backup because it is something that's different. It's not exactly what a traditional backup solution is. It's really a new way to extend the journal that is part of Zerto Virtual Replication and give you some longer-term retention so you can preserve at the VPG level. You can preserve those copies and keep them for longer as your business requires. Increases usefulness of the information at the target site. So there is no backup infrastructure on the production site. So that's kind of nice if you have something that's putting quite a bit of overhead on your production environment, maybe impeding the performance of those production workloads. With the Zerto Offsite Backup feature, we don't put anything on the production site. So we actually leverage the replicated data and take backups at the target site. It also simplifies data protection because everything's now in one solution. So now at the virtual protection group level, so just for a refresher, in case we have anyone on the phone that's a little new to Zerto Virtual Replication, a virtual protection group is a group of virtual machines that make up a production workload or an application. So you might have a VPG for your ERP system as an example, or maybe you have a VPG for your email system. So it'll be a group of VMs, your database server, application, web server. You'll put those together in one group, and that's the unit that we replicate for disaster recovery. And then it's at that level that you'll also configure your backup operations. And because you can see everything in the one user interface, you can see, what am I doing at this application? Okay, so I'm doing this for disaster recovery, great. And then for offsite backup, okay, I'm going to keep, I'm going to do one a night, or I'm going to do a backup, at a different time, whatever it is. Okay, so what offsite backup is not. It's not a full backup product, as I stressed. So you don't have some features that other backup products offer, like the ability to recover a single file, like the ability to dedupe the backups, and it's not an archiving solution. So if someone has different requirements in terms of their backup policies, the Zerto offsite backup feature may be right for you, but it may not be right for you either. So the use cases. So first, compliance use case. So many regulations require you to keep copies of applications or data for a longer period of time. So with your compliance officer or someone who's very familiar with the regulations that you must manage and monitor and adhere to, you should review those with the compliance officer and the features of Zerto Offsite Backup and see if there's a match. And maybe there will be. For disaster recovery to the cloud, so I'll let Shannon talk about this in more detail, get a little further into the presentation. But you're able to combine disaster recovery to the cloud with retention. So you can kind of put that all in one use case. And then the third site, so you can leverage cloud for backup. So if you want to do offsite backup to a third site, or if you want to use a public cloud like Amazon, you're able to use that as the target for a Zerto offsite backup. And then, of course, there's the cost reduction as well, because you can use cheaper storage for your backup. If this is something that you're doing within your environment, you might not want to put backup on your, super premium storage array that costs you 6 figures. You can use something else for your backups. Okay, so some of the benefits. So again, having backup and disaster recovery in one solution really makes things a lot easier. You're able to quickly determine, does this application require a backup? Does it not? If it does, am I doing it? You can streamline management of your backup operations. You're able to have daily, weekly, and monthly options, so you can configure the way that your business needs. Because we're not putting any additional components on your production site, you're able to really reduce the impact to production workloads. And then many businesses have the requirement to have data in more than 2 locations. They have a requirement to have it not just in production and not just at the DR site, but then there's the requirement to have it at a 3rd site. With Zerto Offsite Backup, we're able to support that requirement. So, and then lastly, we talked a little bit about this already. So the ability to recover in third-party infrastructures, including public clouds. So if we take a quick look at the architecture, if you are a Zerto Virtual Replication customer array, this should look somewhat familiar. And what you'll see that's new is the Zerto Virtual Backup Appliance. And again, notice that's just at the replication site. And this is what's going to manage the operations at the target site. We talked about the virtual protection group and what that is. So backups will be based off of that VPG. And different types of repositories can be leveraged. So here we have just another storage array at the replication site. You'll see on the next slide when I pass over to Shannon, you're able to have that maybe in a public cloud infrastructure. You can recover or in vSphere or vCloud environments. So very similar to how Zerto Virtual Replication worked prior to 3.5. As we enabled replication between different versions of vSphere and from vSphere to vCloud, we enable recovery of the offsite backups in those same environments. Okay, and now I'm going to turn it over to Shannon just to go in a little bit more detail on the replication site. And Shannon, I'm just going to go ahead and build the slide for you slowly.
Okay, very good. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So as Jen said, the Zerto Virtual Backup Appliance right now runs as a service on the ZVN. So as you know, when you install the Zerto Virtual Manager, it runs as a Windows service. And that's what the Virtual Backup Appliance is going to look like as well for now. As we build out, future features and things, we wanted to be able to have that name correctly in case that it turns into a true virtual appliance at some point. But it is based off of the VPG level, to where the VPGs can be, they span across data stores and also hosts. And so we have the VPGs that we want to back up, and we can use either local storage on the Zerto Virtual Manager with the backup appliance, or we can actually map to an SMB share or a sys share, either to just another server on the remote environment, or it could be sort of like, for example, a cloud gateway that presents sys shares that takes you out to the cloud. And then what it looks like, what the backup packages themselves have, they're very portable. So they are able to be portable because they have the metadata that's needed in order to take the whole VPG and the information about the VPG, including the VMs and the VPG configuration and checkpoint information. That's all going inside of a package that goes out to the remote storage. So the Zerto backup packages are indeed very portable, to where they appear as essentially just a compressed folder with all the contents that you need to be constituted at some point. So what I'm going to show, this last point here, it can be restored to the original Zerto Virtual Manager that created it, or in the use case that I'll show you today, just simply because it makes the demo faster, I restored it to a completely new ZVM, and it brings the VMs back in and their actual virtual machines from a point in time from a successful backed up instance. So if you want to switch slides, Jen, we can look at the...
Yeah,
okay,
we have a question I think that might be relevant to this slide. So someone asked, can Zerto Offsite Backup archive ZVR packages to any public cloud, or does it require specific cloud plugins?
Well, now keep in mind what we're doing is you're saving the package elsewhere via natively via an SMB share. Now that could be stored to somewhere as a public cloud, such as Amazon. Now we can't reconstitute it in Amazon because it's not VMware's infrastructure. What it is the package with the VPG and the VMs in it that can be brought over somewhere else that has a VMware environment with the Zerto Virtual Manager running with 3.5 or higher, and then you can start those VMs up there. All right. So any other questions, Jen?
Yeah, I'll go to the next slide, but yes, we did get one more. We need to migrate VMs from vCloud into vCAC. Is this possible?
From vCloud to vCAC, it could. Well, I mean, from a perspective that it could package them, and if you're talking about two very different environments completely, then you can package them up and use them in very much like a pre-seed type of situation, to where you're just pointing to the packages and it brings the VMs back in. So it can be used in portability use cases because of the nature of what's inside the package. Now, looking at the package, just breaking open what's in there, we have the VPG and the checkpoint time, so it just gives you the last or the checkpoint that the backup package was created, and the VPG information. But then it's also got the VPG configuration file, so it knows about the VPG, and then because it needs to know that metadata in order to know what VMs are in it and what when you have the VMs, what their configs look like, and then the actual information about the data store, the controller units and things, to where there's a consistent point in time for all the VMs in that package. So this is kind of this sort of microscopic level of looking inside of what the package looks like. Do you have any other questions at this point?
Yeah, how does Zerto put data domain as the backup repository in terms of dedupe?
I think it works very well. In fact, currently we have customers that are using it with our clone operation in order to achieve deduplication, because that's a good point to bring up. And I know, Jen, you mentioned it in a previous slide that we're not doing dedupe, but you can target storage. In fact, in my demo, I'm targeting just a simple Windows Server 2012 with dedupe on it, and it's doing the the dedupe effort for me there. So yeah, it definitely can work any dedupe type storage as a target.
Okay, great. All right. So now if we take a look at the offsite backup configuration. So if you're familiar with Zerto Virtual Replication, this will look very familiar. If you're not, this is basically the interface to manage your VPG. So you'll set things up like the service profiles, target RPO, journaling, and things like that. And then also you'll see backup properties. So you can see what the retention period is, what the repository name is, and when to start the job. So you can configure the backup right here. See, I think we've hit on everything. Yep. And most important thing about the job start time is you can make sure it doesn't impact productivity, so you can schedule it during off hours. And here, also within the interface, you'll see there's just another tab for offsite backup. And I do know it's a little small, but you can see things like the source site, the recovery site, the start time, the repository name. So it really gives you a very comprehensive look at what your offsite backup is, what's being backed up with the offsite backup feature, and what's going on across the environment. And here, just another view so you can look at the repositories just to make sure that you have the correct number of restore points and that everything's, aligning with your business needs and how you've configured the offsite backup feature. Okay, so a couple other settings that we didn't cover in the slides yet. So one is the configuration of the retention time. So daily backups are saved for 1 week. And as those daily backups age, we start to delete them, but we will save a weekly backup for a month, and then those age, we start to do some automated retention configuration and retain one backup per month. One backup per month, and those are retained per year. And so, Shannon, I don't know if you want to add a little bit more color to that. I know you've configured this in a little bit more detail than I have.
No, I think the big point to make here is that these are full copies. So we're not doing incrementals. We're not doing anything fancy like that. What we're doing is very simple, full backups, and that's why your dedupe is pretty important as far as your storage backend. And then it's very simple. At the end of the week, we start scrubbing out the full copies that we don't need anymore, and then the same thing for a month. And this gives you milestones, essentially, that I can go back to. I can go back the third week of the month or the third month of the year eventually, to where I need to pull something from that milestone. So it's not a complex, grandfather, father, child type of archival type of setup. It's very simple, because what we're trying to do is something very deliberate with extending out the milestones that I can go back to to get the VMs back through our interface. Because the thing is, the data is already out at the recovery site, so we want to add this feature that gives you more options for how to get the data back quickly.
Right, perfect. And then also we did talk about managing the repository, so you can, you'll see that within the interface, and they can be local or on a shared network, and you can configure the backup windows to meet your business needs. And many questions have come in now, Shannon, while I turn it over to you. So I'm going to make Shannon the presenter for,
okay,
so he can do his demo. And I'll take the first question I can answer, Shannon, and then I'll probably have to get a few others your way. So someone said, I'm envisioning that Zerto will need to be installed in every ESX host in the cloud. Can you elaborate? So within Zerto Virtual Replication, there are two components. The Zerto Virtual Manager, that's at the per site level. And then on each ESX host, we have something called the Zerto Virtual Replication Appliance. And that gets installed on each ESX host, and that's what does the actual replication. And then, as Shannon mentioned, the Zerto Offsite Backup Appliance is a service that runs at the Zerto Virtual Manager level. And if that's not clear, certainly feel free to follow up with me. Shannon and I have our emails at the end of the presentation. But we do also have all our other webinars recorded and posted on our website. So if you were to watch that, you kind of understand the architecture maybe a little bit better. But certainly feel free to follow up.
Also, we have some very concise master disaster webcasts. They're like 10, 15-minute long. Hands-on, looking at the demo of the product as well. So if you need a refresher on any of the things I'll be showing you, because I'm not going to go through the construction of a VPG or anything like that. So hopefully, Jen, you're seeing my main screen.
I am seeing your main screen. I'm going to take just one more question really quick because I can answer it. Someone's asking, can they get a copy of the slides, or is it being recorded? This is being recorded, and it will be posted on our website, and that usually takes a couple of days, so look for it at the end of the week. And Shannon, back over to you.
All right, very good. Okay, so I just want to acclimate everyone here, because I've got 3 sites in the mix this time. So I've got my New York site. That's my site that I'm going to be backing up. Actually, I am backing up to my remote site called the primary site. And then in this scenario, what I'm going to do is, just to make things go faster, I'm going to show you what it would be like if I totally had to get rid of the VMs and I had to pull them back in from the backup, and basically the steps you go through that, then of course through the magic of having it done already, then you'll see the end result. So let's look at the, now we're working from the assumption, since this is a what's new webinar, that you know the product, and we're talking about the differences. So I won't take you through each of the tabs specifically. What I want to do is talk about what's new. So the first tab that's new in 3.5 is the Setup tab. And so from the Setup tab, we've moved the VRAs of management over into here. So now we can do bulk actions on the VRAs. We also have a data store view of, here's the number of data stores I have. You'll be in a lab, I only got one small share here. So, but it's showing me the use of total usage and the how much usage is being used for DR. And then this is very specific to the offsite backup feature. This is the repositories. So now we talked about in the architecture that we can either use local storage, or we can use an SMB share, a CIF share going to the ZVM. So the ZVM is at the, what we've done is we've connected an SMB share to it, and then we just add a repository by simply a very simple wizard, just typing in the repository name, the network share, the path, and the credentials, and then it validates it. So that's how we arrived at getting these shares. And then the next new tab is the Offsite Backup tab. Now, from New York, what I'm doing is I have not only DR, so I can do my regular, I need to go back to a point in time 3 days ago or 4 hours ago. I still have that functionality, but that functionality has now been extended because now I've got backups going, and I've got 7 of 9 backups. So this one's actually been going for, I had a couple of failed backups because I was doing some configuration, but it keeps track of it. And once I got that fixed, now I have 7 days. That's a full week, and then eventually that'll start scrubbing itself too. So let's go into what it looks like as far as the virtual protection group itself. It's very familiar. So I've got a Win app. I've got a WordPress server. The Win app is actually a file server, and it's a file server for this WordPress server. So this is what the actual WordPress server looks like. Let me refresh it. It's so it's up and running, and the images are coming from the Windows file server. So yes, that is backwards from normally you would see, but there we go. All right, so that's looking at the edit of the VPG. We saw this in a screen cap, but there's a couple things I wanted to show. So now my recovery policy is new, and I've got 2 different types of policy. I've got the extended recovery, which gives me this backup properties field, and I've got my normal disaster recovery. So you still have choices on whether you want to have certain VPGs backed up, or you just need a DR functionality. And depending on what I choose in this drop-down box is whether I'll get the backup properties. If I choose the backup properties, then I'm able to choose those repositories that I define, and then I go through and I set up the scheduler of my retention period all the way up to a year. And then right now I got a monthly, I'm starting at 1,800 hours, doing a daily, and then it will do that scrub that we talked about as far as the end of the week. And then ultimately I'm only keeping this for a month, so then it will retire those. All right, so there is a backup window if there's a network considerations. Remember, since this is, I can just pick out the hours I want or don't want it to do. And this would be, I think, more probably a backup or a network consideration, unless you're running bidirectional replication to where you may have some storage or network considerations, and you just need to define a backup window. But that's really that's really it as far as setting up your backup. You set the location, you set up a very simple schedule, and it's done through this very familiar interface of the VPG. So hopefully that starts introducing the reason why that we've been pretty insistent on saying this is a different way to do data protection, because you don't have all the in-depth capability, bells and whistles, if you will, as a full, here's what we focus on backup product. That's not really what we're going for. And what we're trying to do is a very simple extension of the protection of a protection group that you already configured anyway. So this is what the configuration looks like. And then if I go back to my offsite backup, I see that I've done several that way. Now, just as an aside, because we had the question about the dedupe storage, I just got it on a simple Windows file server, and you notice I'm getting about a 43% savings on deduplication. So it's highly recommended that you set up some sort of target. And in this case, it's a simple Windows server, so it doesn't have to be that complex. But that could be, again, some a gateway or something going to a cloud provider that's able to house it as well. Okay, so any questions so far, Jen, that would be germane to this section?
Yes, someone was asking about the scrubbing roll-up policy, so kind of our automated retention management. Is there a way to make that custom? Is there a way to customize that?
Not in this version. I think we'll add some robustness to it, perhaps in the future. But a lot of this has to do with we wanted to keep it simple, and that is the goal of it. Now, of course, our history is very steeped in taking feedback and making this as functional and as flexible as possible while maintaining a simple interface to manage it from. So I won't say that that won't ever happen. It's just in this version, it's just a simple, very simple schedule, and a retention and a scrubbing sort of mechanism we have there.
Okay, and then I don't know if this is directly related, but I'll sneak in one more just because we have so many. At the end of your demo, we're going to have a lot of questions, which is great. So can Zerto Offsite Backup and Veeam work together to provide the missing backup functionality?
I suppose it's it's possible that you could do something with Veeam at the let's say, for example, that you're saving those packages off somewhere and they're sitting there. Then you could use Veeam to do something with them, because in effect, if you look at what they are, they're files. They're compressed files and folders. So now the information in them, to reconstitute them, you have to have a ZVM. So, and it needs to be 3.5 or higher. So hopefully that answers it effectively.
Okay, great.
Now, what's new in the screen as well, you notice now we've got a new workflow, the restore button. So we select the restore button from, this is from the site that's actually familiar with the backup. So it's going to give me a drop-down box of which one do I want to restore, because it already knows about these. So in its database, it knows that these are the protection groups that are being backed up as well. So let's say, for example, I selected this one, and I go next, and it's going to give me my choices of the points in time that I have, and then I could restore from a backup from what's live here. Now, I would just follow the wizard, and I'm going to show you this a little bit more in the offsite one. So that's where I would do it, just to do a drop down. It knows about the backed up VPGs, and then I just do a restore. Now, what I want to do is, hopefully we've established that we've got backups, we've got the repositories, we've got the setup. So we've seen kind of the new things as far as the interface goes. Now I want to go over to a new world, let's say, that this is either it's I'm building this new and I just want to pull these VMs into a completely different ZVM. It knows nothing about those packages or those backups. This could be from, the worst case scenario disaster of everything's gone, on both sites, but you had this at a cloud provider, you built your site back, and now you want to, pull these VMs back in to get them up and running. So in that case, what I would do is I've got a blank canvas essentially. So I want to go to restore, and this is where I can start pulling from a repository. Now I did set up the repository just like I did on my backup site. I connected an SMB share to where these packages are. This could have also been, I could have dumped them to local storage, but in some way I've got these packages back to where I can access them. And so let's see if I pick the right one. Yeah, okay. Now, see, it shows me the list of backups that I have to choose from that's in this repository. So if I pick one, so I've got the choices here. So I'm going to pick this one. It happens to be at the right time that I like, date and everything. So I'll walk through the wizard, and what it's showing me is then I can just pick, this one was a little more intuitive. It knew more about the infrastructure because it already had that information about the backup in its database. This is new. So I've got to tell it the host. I've got to tell it, where I want to put the data store. But then I can go in and I can do some configurations to the VMs themselves, such as, what network I want to put these on. So if I need to create a new MAC address for these things, for example, and then if I need to change the static IP address, I could keep the same IP address that's in that VM, or I could go with DHCP. So see, I can do those tweaks to the VM even in this restore process. I can also choose the thick or thin behavior, and then if I need to make some DNS changes because maybe these are going somewhere else. Okay, so I'll save that, and same thing with this other VM inside the VPG. Select the folder. Let's give it a new MAC address, same IP, and then I save that. Now I can also choose whether I want to, the power operations during the operation. I need to tell it what folder to go there. Okay, so now if it knows that I can get the VPG specification in some instances, but on this one I went ahead and did the configuration. But let's go next. So this is ready essentially to restore. Now I'm going to hit the button because what happens is it just runs a task to start copying those over, and that takes a while if you can imagine pulling this, two VMs in this case over. But what I did was those are the steps I took right before now, and here are the two VMs that were restored, and if I open them up, they're they're real and they're on the right network that I told it to, and you can log into them, and they've got the they're a restored VM for backups, which I know that we've probably most everyone on this has seen before. So, but as far as restoring a VM from a backup, so that is I know it's a little short, but that's really the sort of the workflow I wanted to take everyone through. And now we've got the VMs to where we can set them up, and set up a new VPG at this either new world or reconstituting, what we had lost there before, and we could go ahead and set these up as and they have their own protection. So any questions so far, June?
Yes, I don't know that they're directly related to exactly what you're showing though. Is that okay?
That's fine. I think from a new stuff we wanted to show that the backup and the restore. This would have been a lot longer demo if I'd allowed it to do this. the actual restore process, but I think everybody gets the point that it works. So yeah, let's take some questions, and then you're ready to finish up your slides too.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you manually create a backup ad hoc or convert a checkpoint into a backup?
Can I run a backup ad hoc? Yes. So if I went and selected this backup, I have an action of run backup, and that's a manual backup, and it kicks off a manual backup, and I can do that, and it will show the process is running. In fact, I can kick off a manual backup just so you can see what the it's going to say, hey, you're interfering with the schedule. But see, it's going to we see this task view, and some of you may be running older versions and you haven't even seen this task view. The task view is pretty impressive as far as it gives you all that feedback that that's nice to have as the tasks are running at the bottom. You see this one task running, but I can open up and see what that task is, and then I can see whether I've got alerts or not. So I kicked off this backup, and so it will run.
Okay, and then can you restore at the file level, the individual database level?
That would fall under the not having the advanced backup features. What you would do in that case is very much like what I did, only in an isolated environment. Restore the VM, and then of course you can pull anything off of it at that point because it's a real virtual machine.
Okay,
Keep
great.
in mind, I think the first thing you have to go into it is, and that's kind of the biggest challenge sometimes that Jen and I have on, because it has the word backup in it, you start thinking that immediately of, advanced, mature backup products, and that's really not what we're trying to do. We're trying to extend the duration that these VMs in a VPG, that you have protection that you can pull, bring them back to life, and that's really more of our target, as opposed to, trying to combat with backup products that have been around for years.
Yeah, and just to add to that, kind of the genesis of offsite backup was, if we actually go back to 1.0, so I don't know if people know this, but the journal in 1.0 is 3 days, so that's 1 hour up to 5 days worth of data, and that's very granular in terms of your recovery points. There's one every couple of seconds. And then customer requests, again, Shannon mentioned, we take our feedback from our customers very seriously. And someone said, hey, why don't you make it 5 days? And it's a work week. And that was a great suggestion. Made a lot of sense. Next version, done. So we made it 5 days. And then some have been asking for longer and longer. And then we thought, well, what if we did something like this with the offsite backup feature? And kind of you have your journal for 5 days, and then you can have the offsite backup for a week. And now you have, for 5 days, very granular. And then additional 7 days, somewhat granular. So now you have almost 2 weeks worth of data that you can recover to. So that was kind of how the genesis of offsite backup. Okay, so Shannon, I'm going to take back presenter controls to do a couple more things.
Okay.
Oh, and another question just came in. Says, does this operation appear in the Zerto self-service portal?
Yeah, so that is one of the things that we keep on, is having it integrated in with the CCM and to where you can do all the operations through all of our products. So it will.
Great. So then just to touch on the additional enhancements, because, obviously the Zerto offsite backup was the biggest, but we always make improvements across the board in the product. So we made management a little bit easier, and we'll take a look at what that means. The enhanced alerting to make it a little easier to determine the cause of an issue, and then the APIs. So now we have actionable APIs, and I have a list of what those are. So first, to add a data store. So now to change data storage, you don't have to do a complete resync. You can use the storage vMotion feature and get some alignment there, so that resync is no longer required, so that makes things a little bit easier. And then within the VPG status, you can see protection status, substatuses, and also progress. So as things are kind of syncing up and things like that, you'll see the relationship between the two. And then enhanced alerting. So when an alert comes up, we have probable cause and then possible resolutions. So those are linked, and making, so you can kind of do some troubleshooting on your own and see if you can resolve the issue. If you cannot resolve the issue from the GUI now, you can directly connect to support. So just making it a little bit easier to get access to the help that you need, because we do know how important disaster recovery operations are to yourself and for all our managed service providers to their customers. And then actionable APIs for automation orchestration. So basically, we provide the ability to do things like failover, rollback, stop test, create a VPG, and things like that, all through APIs. So our first APIs when we're monitoring, reporting, and things like that, and a little bit on the actions. Well, this time now, with this release, you're able to do, execute many, many more actions within the Zerto Virtual Replication family. And then I think that is just about my last slide. So I will just put up our contact information. If you have any other questions for myself or for Shannon, absolutely feel free to email us. We actually did manage to answer all the questions, I think. So I'll give everyone a minute in case I missed someone, just because when you have a long list, a question can get lost here and there. So if I did miss one, I'll give everyone another minute. I don't know, Shannon, if you can think of anything else that you'd like to add.
Yeah, on the APIs, there's a good blog post today. If you check us out on Twitter, I know we've retweeted it several times, either if you do Zerto Corp or me, I know I've retweeted it too. A good blog post about using the APIs with ECO, and the guy sort of takes you through using our APIs in the script and from the beginning. So it's a really nice blog post to give you an idea of the, if you don't get a chance to play around with those type of things, to see how easy it is to leverage our APIs for very cool things. Okay. Do we have any other questions, Jen? Have I lost your audio?
Oh, I'm sorry. I went on mute so that you couldn't hear my squeaky chair. I was going to say we don't have any more questions. But if you do want to contact Shannon or myself, please feel free to do so. There are emails. We'd love to hear from you. This will be recorded and posted end of the week, maybe the beginning of next week. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time today. Shannon, thanks for a fantastic demo as always.
Thank you.
And everyone have a great day. Take care.